Think about the unbelievable scale of 16,000 episodes. You do not reach that kind of historic television landmark by simply airing a regular everyday episode in Port Charles. The executives and the writing team know that the eyes of the entire soap opera world will be completely focused on them. They need to deliver an absolute spectacle, a perfect, heart-wrenching blend of nostalgia, heartbreak, and jaw-dropping surprises that will leave fans speechless. The writers are quietly moving chess pieces around the board right now, positioning every single character exactly where they need to be for a massive explosion of drama. When you start connecting the dots and looking past the surface-level drama, you realize that the recent shifts in the storyline are deeply intentional. We are being set up for a monumental payoff, and the clues are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to piece them together. Let us examine a very specific detail that has been staring us right in the face over the last few episodes. Over the past few weeks, we have witnessed a sudden and highly suspicious influx of returning legacy characters. Mac has finally returned to the fold, bringing his steady presence back to the PCPD. Martin is back on the canvas, ready to navigate the legal nightmares of Port Charles. Anna is making her highly anticipated, yet incredibly fragile, return to town after her traumatic stint in the French mental health facility. But here is the specific detail that really caught my attention and set off my alarm bells. Peter August. Why is Peter suddenly appearing in Anna's hallucinations right now? It may not be a coincidence. The writers are deliberately bringing the darkest ghosts of the past back into the narrative. Anna is struggling, haunted by the deceptive, manipulative, and incredibly dangerous memory of Peter, a man who caused untold destruction to her life and the lives of everyone she loves. Why resurrect his toxic memory right as we approach this massive milestone? Something feels off about the way Anna's trauma is being portrayed on screen. She is trying so incredibly hard to hide her persistent mental health struggles from her loved ones, putting on a brave face for Emma and Felicia while secretly being tormented by these dark visions of Peter. This is a classic textbook soap opera trope used to isolate a character right before a massive, world-shattering revelation. The inclusion of Peter's hallucinations serves as a heavy thematic anchor for the upcoming milestone. It tells us, the audience, that the past is not dead, it is actively bleeding into the present day. The writers are establishing a clear theme of unresolved history coming back to haunt the residents of Port Charles. This clue, the deliberate invocation of past trauma and the strategic return of legacy characters, is the ultimate key to unlocking the true purpose of the July 13th episode. If this detail is true, and the show is actively using the past to set up the future, then that could explain a lot about the other massive returns scheduled for this exact date. We already know for a fact that Steve Burton is officially returning as Jason Morgan on the 16,000th episode. Jason is coming back a profoundly changed man, fresh from his grueling captivity and his secret, nightmare-inducing WSB mission. Thanks to Jocelyn's incredibly risky and secret deal with WSB head Z, where she successfully pinned all of Ross Cullum's heinous crimes on the deceased Cassius Phazon, Jason is finally on his way to freedom. But Jason's highly anticipated return is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening on the exact same day that a mysterious new character, Tristan Roberts, played by Dean Geyer, makes his official debut in Port Charles. Why would the show choose to introduce a completely new wildcard character on a day fundamentally dedicated to legacy and history? That's where things become interesting. Tristan Roberts is not just passing through town for a cup of coffee at Kelly's. A debut on a 16,000th milestone episode means this character is carrying a massive secret or is deeply, inextricably connected to the core families of Port Charles. If you ask me, Tristan might be the explosive catalyst that triggers the main events of the milestone. Perhaps he is tied to the corrupt inner workings of the WSB, to Jason's missing time, or even to the mysterious business executive Hudson, who is slated to arrive later in the summer. By placing Jason's highly anticipated homecoming right next to the arrival of an unknown, unpredictable variable like Tristan, the writers are creating an absolute powder keg of suspense. We have to look at how all these disparate elements interact with each other. Jason is returning to a world where Sunny is spiraling into a dangerous game of cat and mouse with Jen Sidwell, where Carly is caught up in Valentine's complex web of lies, and where young Danny is carrying the heavy, soul-crushing burden of Rocco's deadly secret. Jason is reportedly gaining a new perspective and is seriously considering leaving the mob to protect his family from further danger. Imagine the immense emotional weight of Jason stepping back into Port Charles, seeking peace in a quiet life, only to be immediately confronted by whatever chaos Tristan Roberts brings with him. The convergence of these storylines on July 13 is a deliberate, calculated strategy to maximize the emotional impact. Every single subplot, from Anna's terrifying hallucinations to Jason's hard-won freedom, is a narrative thread being pulled tight toward this one specific date. But the bigger question is, what is the true emotional core of this milestone? Action, suspense, and mob drama are great, but General Hospital fundamentally thrives on family, enduring love, and devastating heartbreak. This brings me to my biggest theory, the potential secret that could change absolutely everything for one of the core legacy families. There may be more to this story regarding Michael Corinthos and his current state of mind. We have been watching Michael suffer in silence, watching him long for his precious daughter and wonder about the fate of Sasha. What if the 16,000th episode is the grand stage for the ultimate tear-jerking family reunion? I strongly suspect that Sophia Matson is preparing to make a shocking, unannounced return as Sasha, and she will not be coming back to Port Charles alone. Picture this incredibly emotional scenario in your mind. The Quartermaine Mansion is incredibly tense, dealing with the disastrous fallout of Brooke Lynn's reckless framing plot against Willow Kane. Michael is feeling completely lost, surrounded by the chaos, the lies, and the deception of his family. He is sitting in the living room, reflecting on everything he has lost, and then the heavy front doors open. Sasha walks in, looking just as beautiful as ever, and she is holding Daisy. The sheer emotional magnitude of Michael finally laying eyes on his daughter after such a long, agonizing, and painful separation would be the absolute perfect centerpiece for a milestone episode. It is the exact kind of tear-jerking, joyful payoff that longtime dedicated viewers crave and deserve. The writers have been keeping Michael's deep pain simmering on the back burner for months now, and July 13 is the perfect, explosive time to let it boil over into pure, unadulterated joy. This beautiful reunion would send massive shockwaves through the entire canvas. How would Willow react to seeing Sasha back in Michael's orbit? How would Tracy, Brooke Lynn, and the rest of the Quartermaines handle the sudden, miraculous return of Sasha and little Daisy? The dynamics of the entire family would shift instantly and irrevocably. Michael would have his entire world turned upside down in the best possible way. This is the exact kind of big, emotional reveal that defines a soap opera milestone. It is not just about explosions, WSB shootouts, or mob hits. It is about the fundamental, enduring human connections that keep us watching this show decade after decade. A sweeping romantic and familial reunion between Michael, Sasha, and Daisy would be permanently etched into General Hospital history as one of its most beautiful and memorable moments. However, we all know that in the dramatic world of Port Charles, profound, overwhelming joy is almost always balanced by devastating, soul-crushing tragedy. If my theory is right, and the 16,000th episode is a massive, canvas-wide celebration of history and family, then someone is going to lose absolutely everything they hold dear. You simply cannot have a milestone of this epic scale without a heartbreaking, tear-inducing goodbye. If Sasha and Daisy represent the brilliant light and hope of this episode, then what represents the dark, inescapable despair? I believe the writers are preparing to deliver a crushing, fatal blow to the canvas, specifically targeting the legacy characters who have just returned to our screens. Let us talk about the potential aftermath of this milestone and who stands to lose the most. I would not be surprised in the slightest if the legendary Holly Sutton suddenly reappears on our screens. But she will not be returning for a joyful, nostalgic reunion with her old friends. Imagine Holly walking into the Metro Court lobby or the PCPD station, her face pale, her hands shaking, tears streaming from her eyes, carrying the absolute worst possible news imaginable. I am talking about tragic, world-shattering final news regarding the great Robert Scorpio. Robert is an absolute titan of General Hospital, a legacy character whose history is woven into the very fabric of the show. If Holly returns to tearfully announce that Robert has passed away or been tragically killed in the line of duty, the emotional fallout would be catastrophic. Think about who would be directly affected by this devastating, life-altering truth. Mac would be completely destroyed, losing his beloved brother right after finally finding his footing again in Port Charles. The grief would be unimaginable for him. Anna, who is already teetering dangerously on the edge of a severe mental breakdown and hallucinating the evil Peter August, might completely shatter into a million pieces upon hearing that her truest friend and former love, Robert, is gone forever. The psychological toll on Anna would be immense, potentially pushing her right back into the dark, inescapable abyss she has fought so incredibly hard to escape. A tragedy of this magnitude would fundamentally and permanently alter the lives of these legacy characters. Who benefits from this terrible loss? Perhaps the corrupt elements within the WSB, perhaps a dangerous new villain hiding in the shadows, waiting for the old guard to fall. But the ultimate emotional cost would be paid heavily by the fans and the characters we have loved for decades. It is a harsh, brutal reality, but major milestones are often marked by the painful passing of the torch. Combining the sheer, unbridled elation of Michael reuniting with his daughter with the soul-crushing, suffocating grief of losing an absolute legend like Robert Scorpio would create an episode so emotionally complex, layered, and powerful that we would be dissecting and talking about it for years to come. The writers are masterfully setting up a stark juxtaposition of life and death, of beautiful beginnings and tragic endings. We may be looking at the beginning of something huge, guys. The intricate pieces are finally moving into place on the board. Jason Morgan is coming home to face a changed world. Tristan Roberts is stepping into the light, bringing unknown chaos with him. Anna Devane is battling her darkest inner demons. And Michael Corinthos is desperately waiting for a miracle that might just walk through his front door. But the absolute truth could be closer than anyone realizes, and it might carry a much heavier, more painful price tag than we ever anticipated. The 16,000th episode is not just a celebratory number. It is a profound reckoning for every single resident of Port Charles. Someone may not be ready for what's coming next. The emotional whiplash of this episode is going to be intense. Whether it is the overwhelming, tearful joy of a fractured family being made whole again, or the agonizing, gut-wrenching sorrow of saying a final goodbye to a beloved, iconic hero, July 13 is going to completely change the landscape of General Hospital forever. Keep your eyes peeled. Watch every single subtle interaction and brace yourselves for a massive emotional impact. We are standing on the very edge of television history, and I promise you, Port Charles will never, ever be the same again.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.